What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa and the Convo Couch. Yeah. We just got back from a Tulsi Gabbard 2, but this is a surprise that kind of happened out of nowhere. Gary Johnson, the Libertarian presidential candidate from 2016, endorsed Tulsi Gabbard over in
an area. Is it working?
Yeah, I think it worked.
Okay. Well, New Hampshire is an area where it has a semi-open primary, so I think in the last live stream, you guys were saying Republicans can vote. No, they had to have registered as an independent to have voted, and I just
no. They have to write her in, so they can't vote on the Democratic ballot.
Right.
Republicans would have to write her in, and then it counts. But you know how we feel about shit.
Yeah.
So
but independents can totally vote for her, and libertarians can totally vote for her. So this works to her favor in New Hampshire. And in the town hall, we just saw that the majority of the people in her town hall were independents.
Yeah.
And that's the majority of people in the state. So it's important to note that it's not a negative thing for her to have Republicans, Democrats, and independents and libertarians. It's a positive thing. A lot of people are very sick and tired of the bipartisanship, and she really knows how to hone in on that and use it to her advantage. But she's genuine about it.
Yeah, but she's genuine. It's not like she doesn't offer solutions. But she also, one of the things about offering solutions, which you all know that we're really big on that. We don't like talking about problems, but but that's like in our area, right? Because we talk about the problems all the time. But for politicians, it's very rare that they actually hone in on the problems that need solutions. There are a lot of people that talk about fake problems, symptoms of major problems, but not actual real problems. So Tulsi hones in on the and then she also explains the problem and then why the solutions can't get done. And she talks about the nonpartisan or the bipartisanship or the duopoly, if you will, better in my opinion than any other candidate in the race. And every time I see her, it just reminds me why I'm voting for her and why I endorsed her. But it also, just watching what we all witnessed, it just reaffirms that there is the most electable candidate in the history of this country. It's Tulsi Gabbard. At the end of the day, when you have a person who can bring in more independents and Republicans to a Democratic primary than Democrats who are already going to vote in the Democratic primary, when you need to beat Donald Trump, who won New Hampshire handedly, and when we know what history has told us, if you win New Hampshire, it is highly likely that even in the general, if you win New Hampshire, it's highly likely that you'll win the entire thing. That's just how history has always gone, with very, very few exceptions. But when you're talking about the only candidate where Tucker Carlson will bring her on to trash Donald Trump, that's huge. There is no way you're going to convince me that the person who will bring on Tucker Carlson will bring on a Tulsi Gabbard to trash the one person that he is almost given a pass to in every aspect except for foreign policy is a bad thing. It's stupid. And they use the argument where they make the case for her with electability by always attacking her with things that we should be celebrating. Like the fact that Tucker Carlson respects her foreign policy so much and is telling that message to other Democrats. Like the fact that they were trying to attack her. Oh yeah, she has a bunch of conservative males that liked her on the poll. Okay, when I last checked, how many motherfuckers, the majority of voters that actually come out and highly participate, they're white males, right? Oh, okay, white conservative males. Even if they're Democrat, a lot of them are still conservative leaning. Mm-hmm. So there is a legitimate argument, obviously, for Bernie. He's definitely more electable than everybody else. But I just think that there's certain things where we have to identify because obviously this race is not a zero-sum game for progressives. We have to think about, okay, well, what if one of the people that we like don't win, right? What does that mean? What is their strengths in this race that have been demonstrated thus far? What does that mean for the election going forward? And what does that mean for elections after this one? And we've identified so far someone who doesn't have to code switch between Republicans and Democrats, or left and right, and can still bring everyone together.
Well, she has a way of putting things that it resonates with people. For a gentleman asked her about the environment, she talks about investing in green energy. She talks about the economics of it, which is something that conservatives and independents and even libertarians really like. And I think more than saying, framing it in another way, which many Democrats do, like, we need to get rid of Donald Trump because he's so bad for the climate. Instead of doing that, she focuses on how it will benefit everybody.
They don't say how they'll be different most of the time.
Right.
Bernie does.
Bernie talks policy, but the rest of them don't. They focus on maligning Donald Trump and why we just need to replace him and unite and unite and unite. But she also doesn't use the label of like a Green New Deal, but her policy, her Fossil Fuels Act, was much better than the Green New Deal, which was a resolution, which was pretty much just like a surface level attack. It's very, very symbolic in nature,
Yeah, and even then it wasn't symbolic enough because both Tulsi and Bernie both saw eye to eye and voted against that resolution. People don't know that. Bernie introduced his own version, and he branded it
way better than AOC,
which is way better than AOC's, and so people will oftentimes conflate as if, oh, well, AOC's resolution was good enough for Bernie. It was not. And AOC, because of her ambitions, she's not going to call Bernie. So it's simple. Are we still alive? Are we good, peeps? I think we're good. Yeah. So we gotta. What Fee said is very true. It's very rare for some reason that we talk about the economic benefits of climate change. We've kind of been obsessed with disaster, forgetting that most people don't make decisions, at least immediate decisions, based off of
an immediate concern.
Yeah, it has to be an immediate concern. Well, it has to be exactly. Well, yeah, they don't make decisions off concern, but they also make quicker decisions, and they're more decisive and deliberate if there's an immediate benefit.
Especially Republican and conservative-minded people. That is a lot of the difference between, the progressive, quote-unquote, who are more emotional. Also the Democrats, who use a lot of emotions to make their decisions. That's why there's that tribalism. Whereas the conservative and Republicans, like, they tend to be more logical, be like, okay, so how does this benefit me? And when
the
Tulsi
average, like the voters, not the
average, but how Tulsi frames things though is so perfect because she doesn't put a label on it, but she's literally passing the same policies or advocating for the same policies as Bernie is, but she doesn't have the label of a democratic socialist. And if more people realize that ticket, any sort of combination would be unstoppable. Now people asked her.
Boston Herald gave a poll today that gives Tulsi 0%. Well, then not to take that poll seriously. Y'all been out here, y'all saw it. Yeah, don't take that shit seriously. But I mean, hey, Buttigieg is also ahead of Bernie according to one poll. So
Buttigieg is ahead of Bernie. I forget which poll it was.
Was it an Emerson?
That's ridiculous. This is what they're trying to do, and I know you saw the video last night, Niko. They're trying to paint it as Buttigieg has a bigger following here in New Hampshire, which is bullshit.
Bro, Buttigieg is not more popular than Klobuchar here.
Yeah.
He's not even more popular than Klobuchar.
They're trying to paint it like that, so when they do rig this thing, this is why we're going to be watching all of the stuff that goes on, because they're going to do something to make Buttigieg
seem like he is more. They're going to try to get him to carry momentum and take it away from Bernie. And Iowa, I mean, I'm glad, actually, I got to say, people have not moved on from Iowa. Do not move on, because that's what happens. People tend to move with the news cycle. That's how we ended up getting screwed over in 2016. People are not doing that, and we can't do that after New Hampshire, and New Hampshire is even more important that we don't move on. Like, even if they try and say that Buttigieg tied Bernie, that is problematic. Whoever wins New Hampshire not only wins this damn primary, but they win the election. Okay? So we know what? What is that?
We can't have Buttigieg win.
We can't have Buttigieg. Hell no. No, not even, and we really can't even have him come close.
And he's right now polling close to Bernie. Like,
we saw that we saw how polling close works out.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how well Buttigieg performs when he's not the one who controls the application. I'm really genuine. He was able to get away with a lot in Iowa, and we're finding out more and more every day. Like, by the time this is said and done, that man might be tied with Warren. You know what I'm saying? Like, let alone being tied with Bernie, he might be tied with Warren in delegates, because they're reporting now that they're double, like they're precincts, big precincts that were reported double in other precincts that weren't reported at all. And coincidentally enough, all the precincts that weren't reported at all, Bernie's. What a surprise, right? So he had to come into striking distance of Bernie in Iowa. He had to get like coin flips that like would never go, like there's just no way, right? That every single coin flip, even invented ones that should have never happened, goes your way, right? Then you gotta have you have control of the results and the way they're being reported. Then you have to have precincts reported double. Then you have cases where they try to take Bernie's delegates or Bernie's count and give it to somebody else. We don't even know how many times that happened to Buttigieg, where he got some of Bernie's count. You had to do all this to tie him in national delegates and lose the popular vote. New Hampshire has a very unique way of exposing the establishment. People thought that Tulsi or that Hillary and Bernie were much closer than they originally ended up being by the end of it, right?
Yeah, he beat him bad.
They thought that, oh, they're relatively tied, or she'll get 45% and he'll get, because it wasn't like that. First they were saying she was going to win. Then they as it got closer, they couldn't pretend like that was going to happen. And then when we got to the election, it was not even close, as Bernie ends up taking almost a super majority of the independent votes and even 45% of the Democrats. So New Hampshire has a way of exposing campaigns in both the Democrats and the Republican Party. They have a way of speaking to the country, saying this is the candidate that you need to be focusing on. These are the 2 or 3 candidates that the country needs to be paying attention to, because these are the 2 or 3 candidates that we will get behind if you win. If you don't support these candidates and you ignore us, because being in New Hampshire, one thing that we've learned, they take their job very fucking seriously here. As being the first primary, they take that shit very seriously because they have a damn good track record. So you can ignore New Hampshire if you want to,
And do so at your peril.
And do so at your peril. So what we see here could very well determine our trajectory going forward, but not just ours, but the establishments as well. If they double down on Buttigieg, if they double down on Warren, I will say objectively, Klobuchar's, her momentum is hers alone. She created it. The mainstream hasn't done her too many favors. They've ignored some things and they've glossed over some things, but there are a lot of pragmatists who think that we can't do everything that we want in this world. And they align with her. Plus, you actually don't believe that Klobuchar is being nefarious. You just believe she's like you really don't understand how like the world actually is and could be. She just doesn't get it, right? You don't get on stage and think she's a nefarious actor like Kamala or even Warren. And she's done a lot. Like Klobuchar's actually gotten a lot of legislation passed. Yeah. Scary enough. But when she's worked, I've figured out
she's worked with Bernie before.
With Bernie a lot. And with Tulsi. She's actually worked with Tulsi in the past too. So
what did Bernie say the other day? He says it was the Klobuchar-Sanders bill. He's like, are you sure it wasn't Sanders' Klobuchar bill?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
She said her name first.
Because it was Canada. It was the drug bill.
The Canadian one.
Yeah, and they're like, it was called. She said, I'm pretty sure it was the Klobuchar-Sanders. But when we see what happens after New Hampshire, the smart ones will recognize that and push that forward, or the dumbasses will continue to ignore it and like Fiora said, they're gonna ignore it at their own peril. Because look, I mean, I think at this point I can pretty confidently say it's going to be Bernie and Tulsi in the top 2. I don't know. I mean, I did not know this many independents out here were for her. It's what we saw in there, y'all. There weren't that many Democrats.
I think if you're only looking at the Democratic Party and what they did to her last night, where they put her after Deval Patrick and
Michael Bennett.
Yeah, Michael Bennett, who I forgot was even still in the race. So all those people had left. Instead of putting her after Bernie, that would have been the right thing to do, but no, they waited and they put her after at the very last spot. And if you're looking at that only and you're seeing all the empty seats, you're saying, oh wow, Tulsi doesn't have a lot of support.
That's what they're trying to do.
You're completely ignoring the majority of people in the state are independent, and majority of independents
don't like
really
the
do love her.
They love her.
They wouldn't go to that event last night.
They love her.
That was a Democratic event.
Exactly. That's what I say. They love her.
Establishment.
Yeah, it was bougie.
People were saying they thought they bust Buttigieg people in there.
Oh, they absolutely did.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely did.
And I would say that, and also I would even argue that probably a lot of those people on the floor were from out of the state. I would say
a
the
lot of people
majority
raise
of
their
them.
hands who said that who's from out of state, and a lot
of people raise their hands, so they're not representative of New Hampshire.
Exactly.
And I would even make an argument that the independents in New Hampshire see that, and it's a signal to them, like, oh, you're not really for us, you're for the Democrats.
Right.
But this is like the live free or die state. Like that is their motto. They don't have seatbelt laws here, people. They're not about that. Like they're not.
I ain't wearing one.
You can't virtue signal them.
Yeah.
You're not gonna win them over by appealing to their emotions.
Nope.
You gotta earn their vote, and they come out here even when they're undecided.
Yeah. Can I tell you something?
Go ahead,
to chime in real quick, because what's really great about being a Tulsi supporter, the gentleman that asked the question about assault rifles. Now, you know, he was going to ask a question that was going to be somewhat controversial to some of those people in the room. A lot of those people themselves in that room might have owned an assault weapon. However, you know, you're never afraid to ask her those questions, you know what I'm saying? Even if you support her, the way I asked her about the trade deals and stuff like that. Because she'll always, you know, she'll just tell you the truth. And she'll give you a reason why, she'll explain to you why she might think differently than you. Unlike Buttigieg, who's just running for the hallways.
Yeah.
Running for the doors.
Ask Tulsi about Assange.
Anything.
Ask Tulsi about assault weapons.
Ask Tulsi for a millionth time if she's running third party.
Yeah.
And she'll get really the most upset.
First
I've
question
seen her.
again, right?
Yeah.
Again.
But
Well, no. The third party question was actually, would you consider supporting a third, or not supporting? Excuse me. Would you be
Not that
for a
question.
third party?
The media question.
Did somebody
She got
ask her
mad.
again?
Are
She
you
got
running
mad.
for third party again?
She goes, I am not running third party. I'm going to say this again. I am not running
She was the
third
most
party.
I've seen her, and she was still playing.
Yeah. She very rarely gets knocked off center, but she hates repeating herself.
Yeah.
Like
That's the first question every time.
yeah.
And the thing is, at the Pete Buttigieg town halls and whatnot, they don't do what she does. She'll always take time for the media, regardless who's in the room, and that's
and she knows what she knows.
She doesn't hide.
Yeah, she knows what the majority of them are there to do, and she doesn't care. She embraces it. Actually, she probably enjoys it.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, let me go ahead and kill all your sound bites that you thought you were going to get from me today. Like, because that's what happened. Like, she handles every question so beautifully, and but just the way, even the way she engages with her. And by the way, just from an aesthetic perspective, she's gotten so much better at speaking. Her body language is so much smoother. She's much more comfortable in front of the crowd. I told y'all, she's always been a shy person.
She's an introvert.
Yeah, super introvert. Way not as much anymore. She's way more comfortable with like engaging with people.
And so is Bernie. It's funny. Some of the best candidates have been introverts. And
Yeah, that's very true.
The more they've spoken, you know.
Yeah, Bernie lets a lot more of himself out this election than he has before.
Yeah.
Like it's funny because they have the most what's the word I'm looking for? Demonstrative people on like around them who support them.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got Bernie, who's very introverted, and then Nina.
Yeah.
Who is the most demonstrative person I have ever the most demonstrative surrogate, like as a
I don't know how you
surrogate.
can stand there so cavalier without question. Sit there like that.
And then you
Cavalier.
got, and even with Tulsi, like her family, it seems like none of the, like her family and her husband aren't even, they're both extroverted. Her sister and her husband are both very extroverted, and Tulsi's like, hi. And fucking, Brenda Vine, man, fucking Mississippi CD.
I love her. She's so great.
But you starting to see Tulsi, she's confident.
Yeah.
Tulsi's very confident that she can win this thing, this state. She's very confident in her momentum going forward. And if we saw today, this is a serious campaign, bro. She's not running for vice president. She's very calculated. She's her plan. If this plan works, even if she comes within striking distance of this election in the nomination, right? We know they're going to try to steal it, but if she comes within striking distance, they will apply this strategy. Like people will apply this strategy for the next 50 years, because I don't think I've ever seen this, but we've never been in social media era of politics like we have. Like it's a lot different. And she had her presence in Iowa, but she recognized, but it ain't always what it's cracked up to be, especially with the amount of rigging that we saw in 2016.
You mean Jimmy don't crack?
But wait, what?
You said it ain't cracked up to be? Is that a pun?
No.
Jimmy
No.
crack corn?
What does that have to do? Oh, really?
Iowa, sorry.
Oh my God.
Gotcha.
Anyway,
I did the Eddie Pepper.
but when you have a state that has been known to break boundaries, if you will. They've been known to break boundaries. They've been known to have better election security than the average. And they've been known to do things like vote Bernie Sanders at a time where everybody was claiming that no one knew who he was. And they were saying he had absolutely no chance. That clearly, they didn't care, right? They didn't care if Bernie had no chance in 2016. Even though that was like a legitimate sentiment, especially at that time. It's the second race in the election. Why would you even vote for Bernie? Why would you? They don't care. Bro, New Hampshire people are on a different level when it comes to their education.
In Iowa too, a lot of the Iowans were telling me, the polls here aren't really that big. Like don't pay attention to the polls, and I think that applies to New Hampshire even more so. Like don't pay attention to the polls because the polls aren't going to tell you the exact truth.
I learned something from Pasta 2 days ago that Ron Paul here against Mitt Romney and another, I would say, libertarian-esque candidate who also did well. Ron Paul lost to Mitt Romney, but that's the only Republican that he lost to. And if you remember Ron Paul's election, like I wasn't even really maybe 21. I was paying attention to the Republican primary, but not as much as I should have been. But I do remember that he was getting attacked, he was getting smeared, he was getting dragged. And matter of fact, they ramped it up after that. They ramped it up bad after he got second place because he's a libertarian. He's technically a third party that just happened to be running in the Republican Party, who really gave Mitt Romney a run for his money. And Mitt Romney is he is the Republican. He is more like a Republican Obama than Pete Buttigieg is a Democrat Obama. Like by the time you actually got to the debates, you didn't actually know whose policy was who.
Yeah.
Like that was actually his biggest problem.
Romnesia.
Yeah, Romney. Yeah, he was like, huh? He's like, I agree with that too.
Yeah. Well, the first debate was so weird.
Yeah, it was really weird to watch. But Ron Paul, they smeared him in every single possible way.
Oh, they went after him hard.
And there were Republican candidates who were being propped up over both Ron Paul and what's his name?
Huntsman. You talking about Mitt Romney? It was Ron Paul, Huntsman. John Huntsman. Abby Huntsman's dad from The View.
Yeah, John Huntsman. I didn't know that. Got third place. Who's also an outsider populist candidate. He's probably more left on domestic policy than Ron Paul was, but they had the same foreign policy.
Worked for Obama.
And he worked for Obama. Yeah.
He spoke Chinese. He spoke Mandarin and Cantonese.
So you had two candidates in a race where they were trying to give it to Romney and the Republicans. They broke. This is what I keep telling people. You need a buffer. So in our situation right now, Bernie's the favorite, and he already won before. He's in Vermont, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That could be our Mitt Romney, potentially, which will be the best version of Mitt Romney he could ever hope to be. Then we have a Tulsi, and then we could potentially have a Yang, based off of your reference right after that, and then a Buttigieg. After that election, the rest of the Republicans, they fell off the face of the planet. They were no longer viable. Because if you can't beat Ron Paul, you damn sure, you couldn't beat Mitt. Yeah, if you couldn't beat Ron Paul, you damn sure couldn't beat Barack Obama. Beat Ron Paul in New Hampshire, I mean. Because they did know one thing, that you definitely need New Hampshire, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat, to win the general election. And if you couldn't beat Ron Paul, if you couldn't beat John Huntsman, you can't possibly be the nominee. That's how a lot of people felt, and rightfully so. So even though Ron Paul didn't come out on top by the end of it, what he did achieve was knocking out everybody else who was below him and considered an establishment Republican. Now the difference is obviously all they had left was Mitt Romney. So that was obviously their problem. We have a situation where we have a Bernie and a Tulsi both running, and no matter who wins in New Hampshire, we just killed off Biden, Klobuchar. I'm pretty sure that would be the end of Deval Patrick.
Yeah.
Bennett doesn't even count.
Bennett doesn't really count, but he might pull out too, though.
Warren
might be done, and she might actually come out and show her true colors even more so.
Niko.
Out of survival.
If I might add, in the Iowa caucus in 2012, John Huntsman finished dead last for the Republicans, 7th place. I mean, he had 0.6% of the votes. He then finished 3rd in New Hampshire with 20-something odd thousand votes. And then Rick Santorum who won the Iowa caucus, finished like 5th or 6th in New Hampshire. To just show you the dichotomy between the two. Just
did y'all hear that? I don't know if y'all heard that, but Posse just let us know in that same election, John Huntsman finished dead last in the Iowa caucus with the Republican primary and finished 3rd place in New Hampshire. And if you could you bring up the polling from RCP, if you could, for like months before? He finished 3rd place in New Hampshire. And
Tulsi didn't place in Iowa at all. So
no, she got like 7th or 8th, like basically, because she's got votes.
Huntsman skipped Iowa too, I think.
And he skipped Iowa.
I almost pretty sure.
Like campaign, like
didn't campaign
there.
Like, you know, it was like, why aren't you in Iowa? Why are you in New Hampshire?
So Huntsman skipped. Well, either way, he plays last in Iowa. Comes to New Hampshire, wins 3rd place, beating most of the establishment people, except for Romney. Then Rick Santorum, who won Iowa, goes to New Hampshire and finishes 6th. Rick Santorum?
Yeah, let me get it up. I got it right here. I'm so sorry. I'm looking for the.
No, you're good.
He finished
way below.
Yeah.
He finished almost last. So, once again, if that is any indication of what we might see here today, I mean, everybody thought that Iowa's momentum was going to carry into New Hampshire in 2016, and not the way that everybody thought it. It ain't go the way everybody thought it was going to go. It carried momentum for somebody, but it wasn't Hillary. So you really, and once again, I saw somebody on Twitter. I ain't gonna say his name, but he's kind of stupid. He said the Democratic primary is a zero-sum game. Bro, it is literally the opposite of a zero-sum game. It is 100% momentum. It's momentum and trajectory, and it's momentum and trajectory that we have never really seen in any election because of just the dynamics of our elections right now. So when we have rules that have been changed for Bloomberg because they thought that Tulsi would actually be done. Can you believe that they actually thought Tulsi would be done at the Iowa? They genuinely believe that. They've convinced themselves that Tulsi is not viable. And there are people who legitimately are looking at these polls that are Democrats. They're asking Democrats and likely Democratic primary voters who are probably also, they're independents, but they caucus with Democrats and do everything democratically. That is who they're judging who will win. If once again, if the amount of people who raised their hand for independence, which was damn near the whole room in the last event that we just went to, we're going to another event later where we'll see. Especially, I don't know the region of the state that's in. That I imagine it's probably a more conservative area.
The area we were in is northeast, right? We were Portsmouth.
No, we're east, way far east. But I feel like it might be a more conservative area of the state because there were more conservative people there. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is how she's going to perform amongst independents in conservative areas of the state, where these are the areas that are going to be hand counting their paper ballots. They're going to be making sure that they're playing by the rules. Oh, bro, y'all got a problem. Y'all got a problem on y'all hands if y'all think that y'all done with Tulsi Gabbard, because now she's back on the debate stage. And they will attack her relentlessly. And every Tulsi supporter is just waiting for them to begin attacking her relentlessly on the mainstream. Because they, you know how it goes, whether they ignore you, then they attack you, and then you win. Yeah, I mean, you already seen the Hillary bump, what it do for everybody that touched her. And it helped Bernie, it helped Tulsi, it helped independent media. Like, so imagine all of Hillary's mainstream lackeys making the misstep, like they did with Ron Paul, but Ron Paul did not have the benefit of social media. They began relentlessly attacking Ron Paul. Obviously, they've been relentlessly attacking Bernie with nonsensical attacks. Yeah. And their main attack for Tulsi Gabbard is she only won because she got a bunch of independents and conservatives, but we need someone who could beat Donald Trump.
So illogical.
I got that, Niko. I couldn't put up the polling numbers, but just so you know, and I was wrong. John Huntsman went from 6th place, 7th place, where he didn't campaign in Iowa that much. He had 739 votes, because Iowa primary for Republicans is just straight up vote, no caucus bullshit.
Okay.
Then, and I was wrong, because he didn't get more than, he got 41,000 votes.
Wow.
Almost, he improved he was third place in New Hampshire, so you can see the difference.
Third place in New Hampshire after
700 to 41,945. So he improved by 41,200
with
votes.
no mainstream coverage.
None.
And Mitt Romney, he might as well be a billionaire. He's one of the millionaires who he got so much assets that he might as well be a billionaire. And that's and Ron Paul, who had been historically popular already.
Yeah.
Amongst libertarians and independents. With nobody. Well, you had what's his name, Mike Gravel, and who else ran that year? And Dennis Kucinich. But I would argue that Ron Paul is more charismatic than right?
Than who?
Ron Paul, then Kucinich and Mike Gravel.
I'd say Gravel would be the most charismatic, but Gravel was the most suppressed.
Yeah, of course. He was the biggest.
He had the biggest voice. He's the one who said, his famous line was, he goes, I can't remember, I never forget when I got to the Senate, I was saying, how the hell did I get here? And then 6 months later, I was saying, how the hell did the rest of them get here?
Yeah,
he was just so surprised on how bad they were in the Senate, especially when it came to foreign policy.
So it's looking good. It's looking good. And for people who are looking for a Bernie update as well, we're on the way to a Bernie event tonight or this afternoon. Hold on, are you going to a Bernie event?
Yeah.
So Fiorello will be covering a Bernie event on the Convo Couch. We're going to cover Tulsi's next town hall event. So I want to be able to, that one was kind of like a rush, I guess, because of the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And so if this one has more time, and we're going to get there a little bit earlier, we want to talk to some of our Tulsi supporters, our potential Tulsi supporters, hopefully undecided. There's a lot of undecided people there, which is, once again, more proof that the state takes their job very seriously. And it looks like, and according to Abraham, her husband, he said, honestly, we've been having 100 people. They had 250 people at that event in Iowa with 4 degrees outside. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this election. They were out there, and he said, but it's been like this the entire last week.
In Iowa?
No, here.
Oh, okay.
Because more people are starting to pay attention because the serious candidates are still in the race now. And I can tell you this, I asked a few people at the event, I was like, did you watch the debate? They were like, for what? For what? They either say flat out no or for what? You don't learn anything at Democrat debates except for who not to vote for, maybe?
Yeah.
People were watching the debate and saying, I'm drinking or I'm doing something because I can't stand this. Is just awful.
It looked like a fucking ad for Donald Trump. His team couldn't have put together a better ad.
And the question's right off the bat for Bernie about his honeymoon. Who gets asked about their honeymoon?
In Russia.
Tulsi would. Tulsi absolutely would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would get asked that kind of question. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Nobody asked about Elizabeth Warren being Republican.
Or
why Pete Buttigieg went on Fox News and nobody excoriated him for that.
Or Amy Klobuchar's lawsuit with
the black guy. Yeah.
Well, she went out. She campaigned on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was a 16-year-old kid. There was a lot of question marks when it first happened, and she used that to her advantage. That's her own Kamala Harris kind of situation. And that's the one time I've really seen Amy Klobuchar.
Sherry Speck said bravo on standing strong.
Oh, thank you.
And so I said, I donated to Niko for this road trip. Maybe I'll have a better month and contribute to the whole gang in your carpool next time for the great job. Oh, thank you very much. Don't worry, we're gonna actually be raising funds for New York here pretty soon, and I'm gonna be going to California, and I'm probably gonna get there probably a week and a half in advance. But we got a lot of work to do in California, y'all. Pasta and Fiorello have already exposed them literally lying to voters about how to vote. Everything. They already started dropping registrations. They've already started telling people, yeah, it's cool, just don't register, because technically you're supposed to be able to register as an independent or unaffiliated and still get a regular ballot. But yeah, they ain't playing that shit. Nope. They're already talking provisional.
I have a friend who's a field organizer, I can't say who, but they have been chastised just now by the campaign saying, oh, we're not where we should be in California. And my friend is one of those that's been fighting for Bernie since 2015 and has been worried this whole time about how the campaign hasn't really done their due diligence there. Yeah. And now they're just trying to be like, okay, we need to go get our numbers
and it's
up.
not
it's
like
come on, you guys, we've been telling you guys that this.
Some people put people out there like it's not like they didn't want to be ahead of the game in California, but the people they put out there were bad. They just were not doing their job. They were ignoring volunteers, which is a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
And that's a fact.
They're still doing it, and I think.
Chin Kong, what are your views about Warren's support yesterday, who pulled a strike out on our Tulsi? I mean, it just once again shows it's exposing these different supporters. Tulsi supporters are 100% the most classy I've ever seen. They're the most intelligent and well-researched that I have ever seen.
I mean, being in a car full of Tulsi supporters, I have to say that they've been pretty respectful.
Fiorella has been attacked by Bernie supporters as much as I have been attacked, and she's been on the ground beating the pavement for Bernie Sanders in California.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy when some Bernie supporters attack me for like standing up for Tulsi. I just don't get that.
And
although that has subsided since she has gone after
Warren, or
since she's went after Buttigieg, Hillary,
yeah,
Kamala, Warren. Who else? I mean, who else did she gotta knock out?
Anybody who wanted could get it. But and of course,
up
once again, that's not every Bernie supporter. But what we're trying to say is that basically every candidate except for Tulsi has had the most toxic supporters, and the only quote unquote mean Tulsi supporters, they're reacting to the fucking vitriol that they've had to deal with for the entire last year.
Everybody has bad supporters, but you know.
Yeah, but that Naomi girl from Twitter was like the weirdest Tulsi supporter I've ever like.
Oh, I know.
She likes Tulsi and doesn't agree with anything like principally that Tulsi supports.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Like she's always surprised.
But
like
Tulsi has a wide array of supporters. So does
Proof
Bernie.
Anthrax, thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate you. But yeah, definitely. Warrior supporters, but it's
It's a cute little town.
Tulsi rubs off on you when it comes to that aloha. Which, by the way, she made a shirt out of my Twitter thread with the don't confuse aloha for weakness. She made a shirt out of that. Yeah. We famous.
When you meet her in person, so we can.
All right, peeps. So we're about to be out because we're gonna get some food. Fiorella is about to go to a Bernie event, so go to the Convo Couch. Check her out there. If you're trying to see some Bernie shit, it's a town hall, right?
Yeah, no, it's a rally.
So it's going to be a rally, which is actually very hard to come by in New Hampshire, especially around this time of year.
Yeah, I don't even know.
So it's going to be interesting to see how many people show up.
Because
if it's outside, there might not be much of a rally. It might not be much of a rally.
I bring my gloves.
But what time is it? 4:16.
Yeah, Johnny, we should probably leave like.
Is that where her thing is?
Yeah.
Yep.
And where? How far is your rally?
It's an hour.
This is where the Revolutionary War began. Concord.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Lexington, Concord.
Wow.
Mike
far is the Airbnb
Mike. We'll focus on it later. All right, peeps. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in later for both live streams. The Combo Couch, I think, is going live first. We'll be live a little bit after. So for everyone else, always remember more than anything else, watch your balance. Peace.